I can put it anywhere.
Yes.
I don't know where to put it. I think that's fine.
All right. So
Okay.
my first question for you is,
So
tell me who you are without telling me what you do.
Okay. I feel like I tend to be the kind of person that is very analytical, just in general. I analyze everything. Maybe it might not be good, but honestly, I feel like I tend to be aware. So the analytical part of me is not in a sense of like trying to figure out something, but it's just to comprehend what's my surroundings and figuring out how I can adapt to that. So I feel like I'm an analytical, adaptable person. It's kind of weird, but
Not weird at all.
yeah.
Awesome. What passions or interests bring you joy and fulfillment in your life?
Silence, actually. I think it can be misconstrued because of how I try to be social. And I try to be social in the sense where, like, I want to be social so that I can understand people, right? Because at the end of the day, like, living your life and living life is to connect, right? Like, if you're not connected, doesn't mean to people, but you don't, I don't know. I don't feel like I feel much, right? Um, so when I feel most connected, sometimes we have this thought that we need to talk all the time. So when there is silence, it makes me feel like I'm in the presence of the moment. So it's quite the opposite. If that makes any sense.
No, that's awesome. And so and you kind of, I guess, basically almost answered the next question I was going to follow up was, when do you feel the most connected with your inner self? But yeah,
Yeah. Honestly, yeah.
I didn't know if you had more to expound upon that, or
I mean, in the sense of like, there's this idea of connection, right? Where you want to connect with people for who they are. But the way that I've construed life, or the way that I've lived life by, is that life is a mirror of who you are. So at the end of the day, like, in order to connect with life outside of you, you have to connect within yourself. So I cannot connect with life because if I try to be with the people that I feel like I'm happy with, but at the end of the day it doesn't bring fulfillment, I'm not connected, you know? So in order to find connection in life, I have found that I have to be silent to connect with myself. And the moment that I'm able to connect with myself, I will naturally connect with everybody else because they will come into my life. Maybe some people may leave, some people might stay, but the people that are meant to be connected to me would be there. If I try to fight a connection, you know, the way that we always want people to like us, or, you know, whatever the case, it doesn't necessarily bring fulfillment. Like, there is no connection there. It's a forced connection, you know? So I feel like in order to find connection, I have felt that I need silence to connect within myself. So that way I will bring forth the people that are my soul tribe. Mm. And that will bring connection. So it works. It starts with the self, I think.
Yeah. Speaking of self, what do you believe are the core strengths and weaknesses that define your character?
I have a lot of weaknesses. I don't know about strengths. I got a lot of weaknesses. But to define, I will be completely honest. I think like my biggest strength is my biggest weakness. And, you know, like in the sense of like, one thing that I've known of who I am, I'm like super stubborn. Like I am dead ass too stubborn, and it can be annoying if you look at it in a bad way. But it can be very strong if you're looking at it as if you want to achieve something, you know? And so like honestly, sometimes I won't like it becomes negative when your thoughts are negative. So I can be very stubborn, and I'm not saying stubborn like it's my weakness and my strength in a good way. Sometimes it's bad because I will talk to myself in the sense where I'm like, I don't. Let's just say like I'm not communicating with myself in a positive light. I will continue to pursue that perspective until I kind of break myself down. So I will say like let's just say I feel inadequate. That feeling of inadequacy, I will drive it because I'm so stubborn. I'll be like, you're inadequate because of this. You're inadequate because of that. I'm not saying it's the beauty of like, you know, it being. It can be beautiful when you're saying like, I'm not gonna stop, because when it's empowering, then yes, it's beautiful because you're like, I'm not gonna stop until I get this because I deserve it. So in that form, you're creating a manifestation of what you want, and you're gonna have it because you're saying that you're able to achieve it, and you're stubborn, you know. So I feel like it can be beautiful when it comes to that, but when it's such a negative thing, it will beat me down to the point where I don't want to do anything with my life, you know. So it's 2-in-1, really.
Since we were talking about that part being, you know, the 2-in-1 and the strengths and weaknesses, like how do you find strength and resilience in situations that are like hard to overcome?
Repeat the question.
Basically, how do you find strength and resilience during times of adversity and personal challenges, I guess?
I'll be completely honest with you. I don't find it in myself. When I'm trying to seek strength in who I am, it never works. It never works. It fails all the time. At least that's how it feels like to me. It works when I trust in whatever people call who they want to believe in. Like honestly, I call it all the things. Like if it's universe, my spirit guides, God, ancestors, like angels. Like it works when I start to let go. Like I start to be able to overcome all of the situations once I start to feel like I no longer have to control the situation. And I know like a lot of the time people have this idea of like, okay, let go, let go, let go. But it's so hard to achieve. Like the idea of forgiveness is the same thing. Everybody knows we want to forgive, but that shit ain't easy because you feel it in your heart, you feel it in your body. Where you start to feel these things physically, it's so hard to truly become of surrender and have forgiveness or let go or allow someone or something or whoever you believe as God to take control, because we're so egotistical. So a lot of the time I feel like I have so much pride of what I think I want to achieve. Like I'm like, this is what I want to do. But my plan is never going to be better than God's plan. So, you know, I feel like if I want to achieve something, the harder it becomes to achieve. Mm-hmm. So, in order to overcome all of what I go through, I truly feel that I start to feel better and feel joy and peace when I stop trying to feel like I can make it better. Because at the end of the day, I don't even know what I'm doing. Like, I don't know anything. Yeah, so the moment that I'm like, Lord, like God, do universe, like spirit guides, masters, whatever, everything and everyone, like I allow you to create my path, and I will just be a vessel for that. And then I think that allows me to have clarity, because I'm just going with the flow like a river, right? You're not really fighting against the current. So.
That's awesome. I guess my next question is, we are always growing individually, obviously, and evolving as humans and everything. But a lot of times, we set goals for ourselves, and one of those goals is like a version of ourselves we want to see ourselves become, that version of ourselves. So I guess my question is like, that version, it's like a bunch of questions within a question. It's like, do you have a version of yourself that you aspire to be, and have you reached that version? Have you not? And if you haven't, how do you navigate the gap that between the version? Should I start too much?
No, it's because I definitely have not achieved the
Oh, okay.
Okay, was that the final?
Yeah, like how do you navigate the gap between where you currently are and the version you want to become of yourself?
I think to be completely transparent, it doesn't matter how successful I am. I think the way that the mind works is that we're always trying to achieve something greater. So, like, in order to have this idea of, like, I've created the best life and I am the best version of myself, that doesn't really come with the idea. It comes more of the feeling. So I can say, like, let's just say I want to create a new career path. I want to create a new life. I want to create new relationships. That's all amazing. And that will bring fulfillment and joy to a particular degree. But I think the idea of creating, when we're so like invested of wanting to be better, that means that we're in lack. That means that we're not good enough. So it's almost counterintuitive. Feeling like, there's this fine line of manifesting a greater life, at least I feel, and being like accepting of what is. Because when we're always trying to achieve and succeed and being like, I'm not going to be good enough until this comes to fruition, then that means you're telling the world, I'm not there yet. I am not successful yet. I will be, but I'm not yet. So I feel like it's like you're creating this version of you. Verbally speaking, I want to achieve this means you have not yet achieved. So it's like this fine line of wanting to create the best version of you truly means settling in and accepting who you are. Because if you're always trying to be the best version, that means that you're not accepting of the present moment. And not accepting the present moment ultimately means that you're not where you want to be, and that's okay. And at the same time, that's okay, because sometimes it feels shitty to be where we are. Sometimes it feels shitty when we're not necessarily happy. But then you're putting it out that you don't see that in your future. You know what I mean? Like, you don't see it coming to life when you're thinking, I'm not there, I won't be there, I can't be there because of this and all of my flaws. I think a lot of the reason why, if you're talking it in terms of that path, that linear path of like, okay, in order to be your best self, what do you want to be? If I were to talk linearly, I don't feel like I would be able to achieve it, because how much I bring myself down, because it's like, okay, I have this idea of what I want to become, but it feels so far off. How am I going to do it? you know? So I feel like I try to live life in the sense of there's beauty to seeing what I want to become, but also the beauty of accepting that it feels so much more gratifying knowing that starting off far off from where I want to, far off of where I want to go, that means that I have been given blessings. So I try not to overthink it because I feel like the flow of life naturally will take you there as long as your heart is there. You don't have to fight against what you want to become. You just have to flow with life, and life will naturally give you the blessings in order to achieve the best version of yourself. But I will say, I feel like I'm in the process, personally. Everything is a process, you know. The best version of myself that I used to think is now. But now I want a better version of myself. So it's kind of like it's all in line of what you feel you want and accepting it as it is, and then flowing until really the day you die. You know.
I guess my next question was, since we're still on the thing of self, what would you say is one of your greatest moments of self-discovery?
Oof. Damn, that's a good question. She. I have to think about that.
Take your time.
Self-discovery. I feel like there's a couple that I can think of because of how much impact it had. Like certain moments, right? Because you're saying like, what's the moment that maybe transitioned your life?
Yeah. Basically, I mean, because, our lives are always transitioning into different moments. So it's like, yeah, like, it could be your greatest moment, or it could just be like, or just a moment you just strongly remember too. It doesn't even have to be like one of your greatest moments of self-discovery. You just be like, wow, this one really stuck with me, and what may not have been as powerful. Like, I feel all moments are powerful for sure, but it may not have been on the grand scheme or grand scale changing moment, but it's still a moment that stuck with you too as well.
Okay. Okay. When you were speaking, you reminded me of something of what we were talking about earlier, and it came to the forefront, so I'm gonna just say it. As I was describing, there was a moment in my life that it kind of shaped who I was for a really, really, really long time. And it was my mom. So I'm not sure if I told you the breakdown. I think I told you the reason why I didn't like technology because it was my mom. But I'm not sure if I told you why. Did I? Well, so the reason is because when we were children, my family, like my siblings and I, we were never allowed to watch TV. And my dad was extremely strict. Like, he overprotective, didn't allow us to do anything, was relatively like over empowering in a negative way. And he didn't allow us to do much. So when he would leave off to work, my mom, she would want us to be with her, like, in her presence. But as kids, we didn't really acknowledge it too much. And I remember telling this story in depth to one of my close friends. But after that, I just felt like it was bringing me back as to why, so it was very conflicting. But she asked us, would you like to help me cook this food? And then I was like, Mom, we never get the chance to like watch cartoons. Why would you ask us? No, I don't want to cook. We're like literally small. So it was such a conflicting feeling because it was like, no one wants to cook when they're literally like less in elementary school. Like, who wants to do tortillas? But at the end of the day, like, she wasn't looking for help. What she was looking was for quality time. But of course, as a kid, I didn't acknowledge that. But I always felt, I never understood it until I was older. I didn't understand what she was asking with that question. It's like the idea of truly being transparent with what you're trying to communicate. Like, she asked, do you want to help me cook? That's way different of, I want to spend time with you. Do you want to be with me as I create this meal to nourish you? Like, at the end of the day, that's what it is. But I didn't understand any of that until much after. And, like, it wasn't like, it didn't click until years after of when she had passed. Because when she passed, obviously it was devastating. But it took me a while to really come back to the memories, because when you're young and something traumatic happens, you kind of just escape and want to go away from the experience. But much after, like, when I started to realize, like, and wanting to connect as to why I was so opposed to certain things, especially technology being one of them. Like, I didn't have my first phone until after I graduated college, like 2 years after I graduated college. And I was kind of severe. The only reason why I got a phone was because I needed a job. And they asked for telephone numbers and for you to call. Other than that, I wouldn't have, or probably a year after college, but I wouldn't have gotten, like, a phone because I was absolutely against it. But so the core reason was because I felt like it destroyed relationships. And I still, to some degree, although I like to say it went, like, have gone through the feeling, I still think it's partly true. Like, there's so much technology that people think it connects, but at the end of the day, like, we end up becoming into this void where we don't even go out into the world and communicate with people, as simply as a hello, and that happens all the time. And so a part of me was so against technology because I felt that I judged myself or felt guilty that I didn't realize that as a kid. Of course, I know that I shouldn't feel guilty, but the feeling is still there. Like, you aren't wrong. You were a kid. I was a kid. But it still eats at me feeling like, damn, if I had been smarter, had I been more aware, which I couldn't have been, but it's the thoughts that I think. So that has shaped me. That single moment shaped my entire life. So,
Thank you for sharing that.
yeah.
I have 2 more questions for you.
Okay.
This next one. What strategies do you use to cultivate compassion and practice? I mean, what strategies do you use to cultivate self-compassion and practice self-care?
Self-compassion. Strategies. Work in progress. I will say the moments I've felt the best about myself was when I was meditating. And the reason for it is because I feel like a lot of the time there's so much noise, there's so much ideas, there's so much voice that it kind of like has made me feel like I start to change who I am to cater to what is outside of me. And so when I see myself, like, and I meditate, it allows me to see the thoughts, because when you're in meditation, you're in silence. So when I meditate, I hear all of these voices that are ongoing, but now they're not physically there, but they're in my mind. So I know what has been occupying my space, what's been occupying my life, like what's been influencing who I am. So when I meditate, I feel like it's so refreshing, and because it allows me to shift if I want to. Not all comments are negative, but there are some. And so I feel like when I meditate, it allows me to really listen to myself. And I think listening to myself and listening to my thoughts, sometimes the thoughts of other people, but at the end of the day, I'm listening to those thoughts. So to me, that's what I think matters. So by allowing myself to listen to what I think is most important, it means that I'm listening to what I think is of value. And that doesn't mean it's good or bad. I'm just saying that it's impacted who I am. So in order to release that and really allow myself to live my life without all of that impact, meditation has been the most fulfilling in self-care, because I'm like, you know what? Fuck all of it. Honestly, fuck everyone. Like, in a good and bad way. Like, it's just like, who cares about all this judgment at the end of the day? Like, you can be judged for whatever you do. So the best alternative is to just accept who you are and not really care about the judgment. But meditation has allowed me to be like, okay, I've put too much emphasis on other people's thoughts. Now I have to think of what I want, what I desire, what my thoughts are towards myself. And that has allowed me to have self-care.
Awesome. Thank you for sharing that. And then my final question is, a lot of people always say, oh, what would you tell your younger self, blah, 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 stuff. But my thing is, which I ask everyone, what do you want to tell your future self?
Future self. That's another good question. I mean, they're all great questions. Some get me stuck. Future self. I feel like I'm going to play a little bit of a... I'm going to play a bit in the sense where I don't know if it sounds, a certain way. It's not the most positive message. That's why it's... I think, because I truly believe in parallel, lives. At the end of the day, I feel like, from what I believe in, there's too many coincidences in life. There's too many people, like doppelgangers, like universes, like quantum jumping, and there's just so much that we don't know, that I feel like we get so absorbed in this one lifetime. And although everybody has their own opinion as to what life is, I mean, no one really knows, I do feel like this is one life parallel to many other, And so, at least the way that I live, I have a twin sister, and I feel like we're living a life so similarly that had it not been for our lives to go the same path, but so many minor shifts, there has to be something there, you know? I feel like there has to be something that they are an aspect of you, but you don't acknowledge that. Other people who exist are aspects of you. You know what I mean? Whether it's now, whether it's let's just say your parents, let's just, people that you love. Like, you might say future self, and you might think who future self is to literally your own body. But what I believe in is we don't have a physical body. Like, this is just a self-identity of what we identify as, so that our mind can wrap around what life is. But nobody really knows. Obviously, I'm speaking out of my own thought, but at the end of the day, nobody knows anything, right? So this is just my own belief. Doesn't mean it's right. Doesn't mean, I don't know what is right. But at the end of the day, when I talk about, or when people ask about future self, I feel that means all aspects of time, because there is no reality of time if everything is space. You know what I mean? Like, technically, if 99.99% is space, then what is in the present? It's just the presence of present life is this identity or this perspective that everything falls in a timeline linearly. But that doesn't really exist, How can linear life exist if we don't even know where we're going or where we came from? It just kind of submerges to a ball like a sphere. It's so circular. Life kind of just starts to embed itself in ways that we wouldn't be able to construe. So, point being, where I'm getting with this is, if I can say to my future self, is so that way it's to allow to see the perspective where it would give me more or less identity, if that makes sense. If that makes sense. For my future self to see myself in everybody else without it being perceived as me. Not sure how much that makes sense to, it makes sense to me, but it's hard to verbalize.
That's all that matters. Awesome. Well, thank you so much for your time. I end every interview with a high five, because that's just something I'm doing. So
okay.
And that was a hard one. No, come on. But yes, thank you so much.
Anytime.
Awesome. Oh man.